California State Prison Sacramento, often referred to as New Folsom, is home to over 1,800 high-security inmates. And on July 23, 2022, at approximately 9:39 a.m., California State Prison Sacramento incarcerated persons Daryl Cull and Nicholas Mangelli were observed attacking incarcerated person Wayne Caskey with manufactured weapons on one of the maximum security yards. Responding staff used less than lethal 40-millimeter direct impact rounds to quell the attack. Caskey would be transported to the institution's triage and treatment area and summoned an ambulance. Sadly, Wayne Caskey was declared deceased at 10:08 a.m.
New tonight, 2 inmates, both from Sacramento County, killed in separate murders at California prisons. On Friday, 52-year-old Albert Martinez was attacked by 2 other inmates at High Desert State Prison in Lassen County. On Saturday at Sacramento State Prison in Folsom, 59-year-old Wayne Caskey was assaulted by 2 inmates in the prison yard. Both died before making it to a hospital. Suspects have been identified in both cases. This afternoon, we are also getting word of a riot at Folsom State Prison. About 20 inmates were involved in this. It happened this morning in one of the facility's medium security housing units. Correctional officers deployed chemical agents to try to stop the violence. 5 inmates were transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. No staff were injured.
I think we can all agree we want to live in a safe community. But as one state lawmaker told me this week, the devil is in the details. Exactly how we go about keeping our community safe differs depending on who you ask. Enter Proposition 57, or the Public Safety Rehabilitation Act of 2016, something you maybe voted for. 2/3 of California voters approved it back on the 2016 ballot. Well, on the surface, there's a lot for some people to like. It allows judges, instead of prosecutors, to decide whether to try a teen in adult or juvenile court. A law passed last year added to that, making it harder for 14 and 15-year-olds to be tried as adults. Also, Prop 57 gives some felons convicted of non-violent crimes a chance at early parole. Supporters say it emphasizes second chances, rehabilitation, and easing overcrowded prisons. But what does and does not qualify as a violent felony may shock you. Rape of an unconscious person is not a violent felony under California law. Neither is assault with caustic chemicals, like throwing acid at someone's face, nor is human trafficking of a child, and more than a dozen other specific crimes.
I think when you ask the majority of your viewers, they're going to say, yeah, that person should be treated as a violent offender.
Democratic Assembly member Jim Cooper of Elk Grove is a supporter of an initiative that has qualified for the 2020 ballot, the Reducing Crime and Keeping California Safe Act of 2020. It promises, among other things, to reclassify currently nonviolent crimes as violent to prevent the early release of inmates convicted of these crimes.
We need to protect the public. There's been a lot of legislation for the past 3 or 4 years, and some needed reforms. I'll agree with you, but we've gone way overboard. And at what point you don't hear folks talk about victims in here? What are we doing to protect victims?
But former Governor Jerry Brown is against the initiative, tweeting in July after it qualified for the 2020 ballot, read the fine print. This flawed initiative would cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars and endanger public safety by restricting parole and undermining inmate rehabilitation. So in terms of keeping our community safe, have recent reforms like Prop 57 made us safer, or are they too lenient? You will get to weigh in on the 2020 ballot.
RJ Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego is at the center of a legal battle that would force the prison to address allegations of staff misconduct. This comes after decades of claims that staff abused and neglected incarcerated people with disabilities. iNews Source is digging deeper into this story, and editor Mary Plummer joins us now with more on this. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
All right, so give us a little more background on this this legal battle here. So what are some of the claims people are making about the staff misconduct?
Hi, Eric. Well, the allegations are quite serious here. They include that correction staff at RJ Donovan State Prison physically assaulted disabled residents. Staff allegedly targeted inmates in wheelchairs and those with walkers. So really serious reports of physical abuse to folks who are disabled and incarcerated at Donovan. As my colleague Sophia Mejias Pasco reports on this story, there are also allegations that inmates were denied medical care and that inmates who reported problems were retaliated against. On top of all of that, reports have shown that Corrections Department officials often fail to properly investigate these type of claims. And Eric, we've talked about issues at Donovan before. There's quite a long history here. These reports of abuse date all the way back to the 1990s. This litigation has been going on for quite some time.
Yeah, we've discussed some of the allegations here. We know a judge has ordered the prison to enact some reforms, but have you guys learned, has anything changed there?
So in terms of what's going on with that, a remedial plan was put in place back in September of 2020. It forced Donovan to make groundbreaking changes, including increased video surveillance, higher staffing levels, and here's the big one, body cams for all corrections officers who interact with disabled inmates. All of this is happening under federal oversight from the federal court system. Lawyers from Donovan and the corrections department have been negotiating reforms for more than a year, according to court documents. So there's a lot of work underway here, some progress, but still a lot of challenges that remain, and some really complex issues that are still getting sorted out here.
Yeah, some of those challenges, some legal pushback, I understand, has been given here. Can you explain more on that?
So lawyers for the corrections department argue that this court order is intrusive and that it requires overly broad reforms. They say a lot of these reform efforts, which have been underway since last year, micromanage prison leadership. They also say there's a lot of overlap between this legal battle and efforts at the prison that are already underway to try and fix some of these problems.
Okay, I know this has been an ongoing issue, ongoing investigations. So any idea what's going to happen next year, what we can expect?
A final version of this remedial plan that we've been talking about is expected to be filed in court sometime later this month. We're keeping an eye on developments there. Attorneys representing inmates responded to the California Corrections Department appeal. They argue they have no legal basis for rolling back the court order and that the court order has helped improve life for disabled inmates at Donovan. Ultimately, it's likely going to be up to a panel of judges to decide exactly what happens next with that remedial plan.
Boy, this one's not over yet. There's a lot of still developing here. And Mary, thanks for staying on top of it, you and your group there at iNewsSource. Appreciate your time this morning. Where can people learn more about the investigation if they have further questions?
Yep.
Our website is inewssource.org. We've done a ton of reporting on Donovan, and we'll be keeping you posted on updates, Eric. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Mary, for your time.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel today. It means a lot. If this is your first time checking out the channel, I really hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy prior videos. If you take the time to go check them out, I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you are a returning person to my channel, someone who has subscribed, liked, commented in the past, then you already know how much it means to me. Thank you very, very much. We are sticking with the theme of 2025. We're going to be going to California State Prison Sacramento, better known as New Folsom. We're going to be going back a few years to July 23rd, 2022. Really quick, before we jump into it, I'm trying really hard to stay focused on this one topic that this channel has focused on in the past. If you are struggling, mental health, drug addiction, reach out and get some help. I'm going to try to be talking about it every single video. I struggled for over 10 years on the streets. I was a full-blown heroin, opiate, Xanax, cocaine addict. I was a drug sponge. I was a mess. And it took multiple trips to rehab, multiple trips to the detox facility, multiple trips to the county jail. And my last run, I was about done. I really thought I didn't know if I was going to make it out of there. By the grace of God, with friends, family, and others, I am here today making this video. I had 5 years sober on March 10th. I am not here to talk about myself. I'm simply here to tell my story and to let you guys know that there is always hope. It is never, ever too late. I don't care if you're 20 years old listening to this. I don't care if you're 50 or 60 or 70 or somewhere in between. There is always hope. I really am a big proponent, a big believer in one day at a time. You take one foot and you put it in front of the other. And again, one day at a time, and you see where that can take you. So again, reach out, get some help, leave a comment down below. I love my favorite part about this channel. I will say this is when I get a comment of someone telling me how long they have sober or if they just celebrated a sober birthday. I absolutely love those. I love all comments, but those ones in particular mean a lot to me. All right, let's jump right into it here. This is an article the CDCR released on July 25th of 2022. Regarding an incident that happened on July 23rd of 2022. Homicide investigation at California State Prison Sacramento on Saturday, July 23rd At approximately 9:39 a.m., California State Prison Sac incarcerated persons Daryl, Cull, and Nicholas Mangelli were observed attacking incarcerated person Wayne Caskey with manufactured weapons on one of the max security yards. Responding staff would use less than lethal force with 40-millimeter direct impact rounds. Man, that would not be fun. To quell the attack, Caskey would be transported to the institution's triage and treatment area and summoned an ambulance. However, Caskey was declared deceased at 10:08 a.m. I will say this really quick. These individuals in this story, I was able to find really good background information on Nicholas Mangelli, one of our main attackers, and Wayne Caskey, the victim in this case. Daryl Cull, he's been in there a long time. He's been in there since 99. But, man, Mangelli and Caskey's background, very, very interesting. Mangelli's in particular. We'll get to that in just a minute. Daryl Cull, 56 years old, was sentenced to the CDCR, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, on June 16, 1999, from San Diego County to serve a life with parole sentence for first-degree attempted murder with intentional discharge of a firearm causing great bodily injury, death, torture, assault with semi-automatic firearm with use of a firearm, inflicting great bodily injury, battery with serious injury, and assault with force likely to produce great bodily injury with inflicting, man, this is always a mouthful, great bodily injury on February 9th, 2012. Our guy Daryl Cull's been busy. Received a 4-year sentence from Lassen County for possession and manufacture of a deadly weapon by a prisoner as a second striker. Additionally, on January 21st, 2016, Cull would receive a 4-year sentence from Lassen County for assault with a deadly weapon and in-prison offense as a second striker. Dude is active behind bars. Nicholas Mangelli, man, he does have quite a story. 32, and again, his story is going to point out what is, again, we've talked about this. We're going to keep beating this drum along with other channels. California prison reform, California prison model is not working. Jeff McCumber, Gavin Newsom. That's why I'm going back a few years on these stories, because 2025 has been an absolutely crazy year. 2024 was a violent, crazy year. Hector Bravo said it best on his channel too. Summer's a coming in 2025. Things are only going to get worse. But these murders, this prison reform, or this prison model, I should say, it's been going on for quite some time. And these stories from 2022, 2023 are the result of this. High violent inmates that have shown they should not be around others or in certain settings. And I get there's only so much you can do. I understand that. And I'm not blaming staff. I'm not, because the prison guards in this are at just as much risk for their physical safety and their physical well-being as are the inmates. And I've said this in other videos. If you are a loved one of an inmate or a corrections officer, you should be mad. You should not be liking what's going on in California right now on the administration side and on the government side. It's an absolute mess. I'm not trying to go too sidetrack here, but there's a couple things that we've really been focusing on this channel, especially since the beginning of this year, and we have got to make sure to talk about those. All right, Nicholas Mangelli, 32 at the time of this attack, was sentenced to CDCR on February 2nd, 2014 from Sacramento County to serve a life without parole sentence for first-degree murder with personal use of a dangerous or deadly weapon. On April 13th, 2018, he was sentenced in Lassen County to serve 8 years for assault with a deadly weapon and in-prison offense as a second striker. Our victim in this case, Wayne Caskey, 59 years old, was sentenced to CDCR on June 15th, 2009 in Sacramento County to serve a life with parole sentence for first-degree murder with intentional discharge of a firearm causing great bodily injury, death. While incarcerated, Caskey was sentenced on March 2nd, 2017 in Sacramento County to serve 4 years for assault by a prisoner with deadly weapon or force likely to produce great bodily injury and in-prison offense as a second striker. Officials have limited movement on the yard to facilitate the investigation being conducted by California State Prison Sacramento's Investigative Services Unit, the Sacramento District Attorney's Office, and the Sacramento County Coroner. The Office of the Inspector General was notified, and the Sac County Coroner will determine Caskey's official cause of death, even though we already know what that is. Dude was stabbed up, beat up, left for dead. It's vicious. It's violent. This is not a place to come play. You guys think it's sweet in California. It is absolutely not, man. It is crazy in there. Okay. Like I said, I got really interesting background information, in particular on Nicholas Mangelli, convicted murderer. And we're just going to jump right into it here. He was convicted of killing, well, he said was one of his best friends, a military veteran. So this is an article back on February 13th, 2012. Citrus Heights police said they're investigating a homicide after a man was found dead in his home just after 11 a.m. Friday, police were called to the area of Auburn and Halifax roads after a neighbor called police when they found the man. The Sacramento County Coroner's Office has identified the victim as Michael Cull. When officers got to the scene, they started a homicide investigation after learning there was a violent struggle at the residence. The suspect is Nicholas Mangelli. Based on statements made by Mangelli and evidence found at the crime scene, the suspect was arrested and charged with murder. And boy, he made some statements. Okay, fast forward a few years as it winds its way through the court. This is an article from January 14th, 2014, when Mangelli would plead guilty to murder. This is the father of the victim, Michael Cull. This is his dad, Gregory Cull, about Mangelli pleading guilty. Quote, "I think it was the right thing for him to do," said Gregory Cull, the father of the 26-year-old who had been severely injured in a 2006 explosion in Iraq when the Humvee he was driving hit a roadside bomb. Quote, "I think the evidence is absolutely overwhelming and the outcome would have been the same no matter what he did. So not putting our family and his family through a trial, I think it's commendable. I don't think anybody else needs to be exposed to all those pictures. I think it's traumatizing." That's a really heavy statement. You have a father whose son was brutally murdered, a father to a veteran. And I give a big shout out. Anybody who's served, anybody who's gone overseas, much salute. It's sad. You know, you survive what you would think would be the most dangerous time in your life, and you end up getting killed by someone you consider to be a friend. It's brutal. A neighbor found Michael Cull's body around 11 a.m. on February 10th, 2012, in a back bedroom of his Citrus Heights home in the 6200 block of Westbrook Drive. According to testimony at Mangelli's preliminary hearing last year, he had ingested methamphetamine and was looking for money when he went to Cull's house and woke him up around 2 a.m. Quote, "When I was doing the drugs, that's all I thought about was getting money, how to get money and how to get money, you know?" He told Citrus Heights Police Detective Nicole Gehring in an interview the day of the killing, according to testimony that was read into the record by Deputy District Attorney Robin Shakely. The day before the killing, Mangelli said he stole $20 from his mother and smoked opium before doing some ecstasy. Then he said he hit up a friend for $80 and used it to buy some crystal meth a few hours before he drove over to Cull's house. Mangelli said that during his pre-dawn visit, Cull opened a safe to show him some valuables. It was then, Mangelli said, that he began, quote, "thinking about how I would kill him, you know?" He said that he thought about it for 3 hours, about how, quote, "I would take his stuff and pawn it." And then at around 6 a.m., Mangelli said the two of them drove to Safeway to buy more beer. When they returned to the house on Westbrook Drive, Cull opened his safe again. Seeing that Cull had a collection of swords and knives, Mangelli said he grabbed a small little blade and stabbed Cull in the back with it. Quote, "So he turns around and knocks my glasses off, you know," Mangelli told the detective. Quote, "I just went ballistic. I just kept stabbing and stabbing and stabbing him." Gehring asked him where he stabbed Cull. "Everywhere," Mangelli replied, "everywhere." He estimated that he stabbed Cull 35 times. An autopsy showed that the actual number, 74, according to Shakely. Mangelli had said that he went to the home to retrieve his contact lenses, then returned to Westbrook Drive where he loaded his car with Cull's video games and consoles. He took the stolen materials to a game shop in Carmichael around 10:15 a.m. to sell them. Cull, however, had been a regular customer at the store, and employees knew they had sold him some of those games that Mangelli brought in, such as an Ultima and a couple of Super Nintendo games. They called a co-owner of the shop, who then went to Cull's house and searched it with a female neighbor. They must have really known him, who found the body. The co-owner called the store and told them to stall Mangelli, which they did until the police arrived and arrested him. Detectives testified at the preliminary hearing in his interview with Gehring. Mangelli said of Cull, quote, "He was a friend of mine." He laid it out in the interview, quote, "I am so sick and I'm so twisted." This hits home on what we talk about a lot. You've got a major amount of drug use, drug addiction. When I read this, I mean, I don't want to say it because it's like Michael Cull's not here to talk about himself. He's obviously deceased. But if they were up all night and going to buy beer, obviously Mangelli's on opium, ecstasy, and methamphetamine. But I'm just going to say it. Obviously, Michael Cull is someone who was using with Mangelli because they're all throughout the night. Michael Cull's not just staying up with his friend who's on a bunch of different drugs, especially meth, and just kicking back. You know, he's obviously partaking. Which is, you know what, he's a full-grown adult. He can make those decisions for himself. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying, you know, as addicts and people that use, we put ourselves in situations that we don't think are dangerous. And I've been in situations like this. I've been around people that I had money in my pocket or things, and you wouldn't think twice. You think you know this person. This is a friend. This is someone I've kicked it with. This is someone I've got high with. This is someone that, maybe they're a little bit of a low life. He stole $20 from his mom, this and that. and then you end up dead. And Mangelli's calling himself sick and twisted, and he was a friend. I mean, this is what we talk about all the time, guys. Go get the help, please. Mangelli would be sentenced to life without parole in February of 2014. Fast forward 5 years. Mangelli's story is not over. May 30th, 2019. California State Prison Sacramento officials are investigating the death of a 63-year-old Charles Anthony Ross as a possible homicide. The victim's name at the time was being withheld. Well, I went and found his name, and that's Charles Anthony Ross. On May 30th at 2:16 p.m., official officers saw inmates Joshua Kerr and Nicholas Mangelli in an altercation with another inmate on the B facility exercise yard. Officers would immediately respond using pepper spray and a blast grenade to quell the violence. No staff injuries were reported. So yes, our guy Mangelli in this story, 3 years prior to this story, killed another individual in prison, Charles Anthony Ross. Staff discovered the victim had been stabbed with an inmate-manufactured device. Life-saving measures were performed on the victim, and as he was transported to the institution's central health building, however, he was, quote, pronounced dead at 2:34 p.m. Kerr and Mangelli are considered suspects and will be placed in the institution's administrative seg unit pending investigation. Kerr, 35, was received from Orange County in December 2015 to serve a 22-year sentence for attempted second-degree murder with an enhancement for street gang activity and second-degree robbery. Now, I don't know if you remember, if any of you are followers of my channel, I did a video on Joshua Kerr being murdered not that long ago. February 27th, 2025, Joshua Kerr was murdered in Los Angeles County State Prison and by his cellmate. So you talk about karma, you talk about things winding their way back around. Joshua Kerr committed a murder in 2019, and almost 5-6 years later, he himself was murdered. It's just, that is prison life. That is called a full circle moment, and I'm not making light of it. I'm not joking. That is insane. Mangelli, at the time of this murder, was 28. He was received from Sacramento County in March 2014 to serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole for that first-degree murder of Michael Cull and personal use of a dangerous or deadly weapon. And Charles Anthony Ross, at the time of his murder, was serving a life without the parole sentence for a 1990s homicide he committed. That's just crazy. That's why I'm not going to lie, I was excited to bring you guys this story because I can't help it. When I read this stuff, it's like, wow. I mean, it really is, it's sad, but it also is fascinating. It's crazy to see that, how Joshua Kerr committed this murder in 2019. He himself finds himself dead in 2025. Mangelli goes from being a drug addict, committing petty crimes and thefts, maybe violent when he's on drugs, but all of a sudden murders his friend, ends up in prison. And Mangelli, though, man, he's kicking off, man. He's committing crimes in prison, and then boom, he commits this murder in 2019. 3 years later, here he is killing Wayne Caskey. And that brings us to Wayne Caskey's background, who also committed murder in prison before he died. Yes, that is facts. When I came across it again, my jaw kind of hit the floor. This is an article from the CDCR from April 30th, 2018. The death of a 30-year-old inmate at California State Prison, Sacramento, in Folsom, is being investigated as a homicide, and his cellmate is the suspect. And I put his picture up. Anthony Junkin was found lying unresponsive on the floor of his cell around 11 p.m. Sunday by staff members conducting an institutional count, according to a California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation news release. An alarm was sounded, and staff members immediately began CPR. Junkin was transported to the facility's triage and treatment area. Folsom Fire Department personnel arrived shortly afterward, and Junkin was pronounced dead at 11:23 p.m. Junkin was admitted to the prison system September 30th, 2015 from Sacramento County. He was serving a sentence of 31 to life with the possibility of parole for attempted murder, 2 counts of making criminal threats to cause great bodily injury, dissuading a witness, and possession of a firearm by a felon. Junkin's cellmate, Wayne Caskey, entered the prison system on July 21st, 2009 from Sacramento County. He was serving a sentence of 50 to life with the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. During his incarceration, he was convicted of assault by a prisoner with a deadly weapon and received an additional 4-year sentence for that offense. Junkin, a North Highlands resident, was convicted of shooting a friend, Jason Hill, out of jealousy over a girlfriend, according to stories in the Sacramento Bee on November 11th, 2014. Junkin shot Hill in the back of the head. Hill survived the shooting, but the bullet lodged in his skull. Junkin bragged to his girlfriend that he shot Hill and later threatened that she would be next if she went to the police. When Junkin was arrested, he was found in possession of a loaded handgun. Caskey, 55, was convicted in 2008 of shooting 45-year-old Gary R. Brooks to death at Brooks' father's South Sacramento electronics business. Prosecutors said the murder resulted from an argument that occurred between Brooks and Caskey. Caskey has been placed in segregated housing as officials investigate Junkin's death, the release said. Crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Like I said, Daryl Cull, didn't get a lot of information on him, but this is one of the ones that kind of blew my mind, not going to lie. Every 10 videos or so, I mean, they all surprise me. They all get to me a little bit, but this one, guys committing murder in prison, being killed themselves, guys committing multiple murders in the case of Mangelli behind bars. You got one body on the street, two in prison. That is California prison system right now in a nutshell. This story almost best describes how it is. And, yeah, absolutely insane. So anyway, much love, much appreciation. Until next time, you already know what it is. Peace.